first question is about the video games universe. You love Atari games in the past.
Yes.
You wrote Reaper 1. Do you feel you were in some way predicting the future when you were writing the novel, making this future, this universe in the video game, the virtual reality? You were predicting the future nowadays in the world we're living today?
Yes. Well, I was trying to predict the future. Any science fiction writer does that. And I was all my favorite science fiction imagines technology and extrapolates how it will evolve in the future and then how it will affect people's lives. So when I was imagining the Oasis in the virtual world, I was really thinking of it as an allegory for the internet and how we use the internet today. And even though, it's not virtual reality, it's still this other world that people escape into through their phone, where they connect with just their friends and meet other people and can escape into their interests, and even though it's a communication tool, the most powerful communication tool that humanity has ever created, we sometimes use it to isolate ourselves and not communicate with the people around us or communicate with a select group of people. So I was fascinated by that, and that was one of the things I wanted to explore with the Oasis. But also, I was trying to imagine the evolution of video games and how video games have evolved from Pong, in my lifetime to, Call of Duty or, World of Warcraft. And that's just in the space of 30 years. So you imagine in another 30 years, video games, will be completely photorealistic and virtual and you would go inside of video games, once the internet and video games merge and then are wrapped around your senses so that your eyes and ears and your hands are inside virtual reality, then how addictive, well, that the video games are already addictive, for some people, or movies, so that was one of the things I wanted to explore, not to make judgments about it, but to, imagine as our entertainment gets better and our ability to simulate reality gets better, then it would be the opposite of the Matrix, where we get enslaved by machines as opposed to creating something like the Oasis that we would willingly put ourselves into to escape the, grim nature of reality. So yeah, I was trying to predict the future. I hope that's not the future that is waiting for us, but I think the technology of virtual reality is definitely going to evolve to that point. It's already happening faster than I anticipated.
You were working with Spielberg in the script and in the movie, but you have to make some changes.
Yes.
It was very hard for you to make changes in the references in the 80s and 90s games, comic books, movies, etc.
It was not hard for me to make changes because I trust Steven Spielberg so much, and I knew from the moment he signed on that he was a big fan of the book and wanted to do the best job he could of bringing that story to the big screen. And I knew from my own work on the screenplay that things would have to change because since I wrote the book thinking it would never be a movie, the sequences and the challenges in the book are not very cinematic. There's often someone playing an old video game or an old tabletop role-playing game like Dungeons & Dragons, things that work in the book but would not be good in a movie because they would. So I knew we would have to reimagine some of those sequences to make them more cinematic and visual, but I got to be involved in making those changes. He was such a wonderful collaborator and asked my opinion, and so I got to help. It was like getting to tell my story again, for the movies, but still capturing the spirit of the book.
I want to know, Ernest, if you feel in your movie, in your book, it's like an autobiographic novel. You feel you are more like Percival, like Halliday. You are a mixture of two in your real life.
Yes, well, I think I'm more like Parzival, and strangely, like the path that this book has put me on is very similar to that of Parzival. By loving the things that I love very passionately and celebrating them and writing about how much I love them. And sharing that enthusiasm with other people, I've somehow, become extremely successful and become a best-selling author and gotten to make a movie with Steven Spielberg and, have got to become a full-time writer by kind of following the same path that Parzival does, and for me, Halliday is Steven Spielberg, that was the guy whose work I studied and and I've studied his past and his history and his biography as a filmmaker, and I know way too much about him. So for me, that's the parallel, you know. And I feel like I've won my own Easter egg hunt, you know, by getting to make a movie with him. So it's a very strange parallel, but one that I enjoy.
Okay, Ernest, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Congratulations for your work.
Thank you, sir.